Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Heads in Tails. I'm your host Fatih John, and if you're new around here, please feel free to follow, subscribe, share, like, review, give me some pointers. This is a podcast for you as much as it is for me. Today we have a fascinating episode lined up for you with a truly special guest, Quinisha. We'll be diving into a range of uncanny topics, starting with the eerie parallels between our lives and horror movies, discussing everything from clowns to the movie Parasite, and examining how these themes play out in our everyday reality. From the pervasive fear of rejection to the critical moments when we need to decide whether to pivot or push forward, Quinisha brings a wealth of insight to these discussions. She will also take us on a journey through her world tour, offering in-depth character analyses of the diverse cities she's visited. She'll share how these experiences and changing environments have allowed her to see herself in a different light, providing valuable lessons on personal growth and self-discovery. We'll discuss how extroversion is celebrated and encouraged while introversion is not favored by workspace dynamics. Additionally, we'll talk about the concept of trauma dumping on nature and how connecting with the natural world can help us process our emotions. Quinisha's perspective is both broad and deep, and her reflections are sure to resonate with people, with anyone looking to understand themselves and the world around them a little better. There's so much more to uncover, and Quinisha's unique perspective is sure to broaden your horizons. Stick around as we delve into these topics and much more. Also, go ahead and check out her inspiring and eye-opening book, Working Twice as Hard. Let's get started. And now we're rolling.
Oh, okay. Action.
Yeah. All these movie cliches, people get into this set mentality, like movie set mentality. Yeah. I don't know. Do you watch movies at all?
I do.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any lately, but yeah. Are you gonna ask me what's my favorite movie?
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. I have so many.
What style of movies do you like?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of horror movies, which I don't know if that was healthy. But I
Yikes. Like which ones? Like Ring?
I watched everything. There was
Did you have like older brother or something?
No, I'm the oldest. But my
Okay.
cousins, they like to watch a lot of scary movies, so we watch the classics like Friday the 13th, Halloween. What are the other ones? There was have you heard of the Leprechaun?
No.
No, okay. There's
Scary ass movie,
a little
right?
leprechaun.
Okay.
He kills people. And Child's Play with the Chucky doll. And then I was I watched the movie It with the clown. His name's Pennywise.
Oh.
And that used to scare the shit out of me, so I was terrified of clowns for the longest time. And I don't know why I'm telling you this, but anyway.
Yeah,
so,
there's a cultural phenomenon that a lot of kids are afraid of clowns.
Yeah, clowns are creepy.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I tell people that as I've gotten older and they laugh, but I'm clowns are fucking creepy.
They
Can I
are
cuss?
creepy.
Okay, yeah.
Is it because, let's try to analyze it for a second. Is it because they're socially outcast, you have nothing else to do in life, so you just become a clown?
Huh.
Do they make background checks for clowns?
Let's see. I guess my theory, maybe as I think about it, is clowns are, I think they kind of represent the extreme of what I see in society is how we're expected to be I guess when you talk about the toxic positivity is clowns are the ultimate example of that in my mind. And I don't know, it's almost for me, maybe that's what I fear becoming is the clown, where it's just
You would hate to become the clown.
You're you're laughing, it's kind of like the Joker, right? The Joker is he's laughing or he has this smile, but it's it's not even his.
But I feel like
it's like it was
hiding.
given to him, and it was like almost like forced. You know, it's like a scar, right? Like it's more of a scar than like you actually want to be smiling. It's like we're going to carve this smile into your face because like you have to be happy. So it's like, but that's terrifying to just be happy all the time.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my theory.
That's a really strong analysis. I love that because it's literally a scar, like in the movie too.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like you just paint yourself.
Yeah.
Because like even I don't think it's humanely possible to just be like this, like as you're working, you know, like. Yeah.
And like when I was a kid, like because I have like a serious face,
Mm-hmm.
so people always tell you like smile, you need to smile more, and I'm just like, why do I need to smile all the time? Like that would be weird to just like walk around with a smile, but like
ingenuine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I would say that's my favorite movie, but I guess those are the ones that like stick out in my
left
mind.
an impression on you.
Yeah.
So horror movies, I couldn't really get into those.
As I've gotten older, I'm like, I don't like to watch them because I'm like, they're starting to be a little too close to reality. So I'm like, I think reality is scary enough, so I don't need to watch movies.
I got my daily dose of horror today.
Yeah.
Another day in the States.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Actually, now that we talk about it, the last movie that I watched that left a really lasting impression on me was called Parasite.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah.
Because it's very different than any other movie, and it doesn't follow the same like story arc that a lot of these 90% of the movies follow, like the hero's journey. It's a little bit more like there's two different heroes, and like their journeys kind of like intertwine in a minute, and then it's like social commentary gets super violent as well.
Parasite's really good. I was like because I had seen that it won like all these awards, and people were like, oh, it's so amazing, and you know, sometimes you're just kind of like, is it, or is it like hype? But when I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one. It deserved the rave reviews for sure.
Do you think the Squid Game was kind of an offshoot from that?
What's that?
The Squid Game. Remember this Netflix special that everyone just went crazy for?
I don't know if I saw that.
Oh really?
No, I don't think I saw
it's that. It's another Korean production.
Okay.
It's they collect a bunch of people, like 400 people, in like all these people who have credit card debts, and they're just like really like low part of the society with like super low credit scores. They have no other option basically. So they get all these people together, and they have these like games, like Hunger Games.
Oh wow.
For entertainment.
Oh wow.
For rich people basically.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, but Parasite, I mean, I guess obviously that's like the the standard, so anything that comes out is like probably influenced by that, I think.
And it's real, you know, like people living in your house. Like I've heard it on a podcast, I don't remember which one, or a friend of mine told me, but like sometimes like famous people have these secret admirers that are a little too close, but they live there like in their house for like years on end. Super creepy.
Yeah, I know. That's what I think. Like I said, I'm always like looking at that stuff, and like even now with like social media, you know, people talk about like the parasocial relationships and stuff, and it's like it is very, I don't know, it's weird. It's like the fact that like you really can't like know somebody and know their lives, and they have no idea who you are. Like you're just they could walk past you on the street and you're like, I know you, and like I know everything about your life, and they're just like, who are you? It's like it's very interesting times that we're in.
So is it a net positive, like this whole interconnectedness that we have through media and airplanes?
I don't know. I
For
mean,
you.
I try to see the positive. I think I tend to be on the side of like, oh, this is weird, this is creepy, but maybe for me it's like a fear of intimacy. I guess it does feel very intimate to like share, because again, like, well, I don't know about you, but for me, like in real life, I don't really have like these types of conversations. Like it's mostly like, oh wow, it's so hot outside, or like, oh wow, it's raining, like man, crazy weather we're having, and like that's it.
Yeah.
But so it's like, for me, social media, like the internet, is like, this is where I actually have like those conversations that seem weird or a little like, you know, unusual, but they're not really unusual. It's like this is stuff that we're all thinking about, but then like we don't say it in our day-to-day lives. We're just like, oh yeah, let's talk about what kind of coffee you had this morning, and it's like, but that's not what we want to talk about. It's like we want to talk about like what's going on, like is this like, you know, people say like dystopia or like some kind of alternate reality, like we're all thinking it, but we feel like if we say it out loud we're crazy. So being able to talk about it online, I guess, is like an outlet for a lot of people. So it's like, I guess that is normal, but it doesn't seem normal because that's not what we do in our day-to-day lives.
How do you think people are more comfortable online talking about these things?
I mean, I guess it's probably because of like anonymity, because like, you know, you have a profile picture, but it's like it might not be you, so it's like you can just kind of say what you think, and like there's no consequences, whereas in real life, if you say these things, then people are like, oh yeah, Quinisha is she's walking around talking all this crazy shit about like clowns and horror, like okay. It's like so you'll get like a reputation as being like that person who's like always saying these odd things. So I think there's more of a fear of like being you know, isolated or outcast, whereas on the internet, like you can always find people to talk about weird shit with on the internet. Like nobody's gonna be like, oh no, that's too much. Or if they do, like you could just go somewhere else, you know, and say it. So there's no shortage of weird people on the internet. No, definitely not.
That's so fascinating, because I do think that the unspoken things or like the untapped nature that we have inside really comes out like easier. It just like slips out almost, you know, online, that people kind of hold back in daily life. I was telling this to a lot of my friends back home. I don't like to talk about 5 things. One's gossip. Second one is, oh, I'm in pain, or like my back hurts, this hurts. Like it's not helping you to like bitch about the pain, and it's not helping us to hear about your bitching, so like just stop. I don't like talking about weather, because I feel like they have literally nothing else to talk about. Or people or events. So those are the things that I mean, I have to, if I have to, I'll just withstand it, but like I'll try to change the topic and like talk about something real as quick as possible.
Interesting. I mean, that's something that I feel too. Like I'm not, when people say like small talk, like I don't like small talk. And I met a guy actually when I was traveling in Europe, and I was telling him like I don't like small talk, and he was like, no, like you have to do that. He's like, that's how you like connect with people and this and that. And I was just telling him like, no, like, or maybe that is a way that you can connect with people, but I don't like it and I don't want to do it, so I don't engage in that. And I think maybe to some people that comes off as like cold or distant, but it's like actually I like to talk about life, you know. And to me, like you said, weather's always going to be here. Like it's always going to be sunny or rainy or like something. So it's like that's nothing new. So, but obviously, like as human beings, you know, every day we're changing. Every day something's happening in our lives that's way more interesting than like the weather.
Absolutely.
So,
And I think what he's saying is like you kind of have to do the like small talk to be able to do the big talk. And like it's just like you're like, hey, I'm relatable, you know, like I'm this kind of person who also likes to be on the surface.
Yeah.
So now let's fucking just drop the surface stuff and then let's go in. I guess, I'm not sure. I have had more deeper conversations with people who I could just skip the small talk with, like in Exhibit A. Yeah. But like because we just like started right off the bat with like clowns and like the societal like imagery and all that stuff. But at the same time, some people need to warm up, I guess, like.
But then I don't know. I'll ask your opinion on this. Okay. But like for me, when I talk to people, it's like, okay, so you do the small talk. And that's like a compromise, right? So you compromise on that. But then it's like, then that ends up only staying there. So you're like, and then when you try to be like, hey, so we talked about the weather now, and it's, but people are, oh no, we have to keep talking about this. So then it just ends up like being in that loop of like,
ooh, I have your solution. You have to ask their personality, their INTJ. First you ask that.
Yeah. I guess that could be like the opening. So yeah.
Then you decide to proceed or not with the small talk.
Yeah. I think that is one of the traits of INTJs. It's like we hate small talk. So yeah.
Tell me about that paper you wrote.
Let's see. What do you want to know?
Well, maybe you can open up with how the idea came from the workspace.
Yeah. So I was working at a nonprofit. I was working in communications, and we had a retreat. There was like a staff retreat, and part of it was like to do these activities that were related to like the personality assessment. So we took the test, and then we also did like these little exercises where it was kind of like, okay, the extroverts are in this group, introverts are in this group, and then they would give us like something, and ask us kind of like, how do you analyze this, or like what's your perspective on it. So that's kind of how it came about. And the retreat was okay, but it felt kind of awkward because for me it was like, I don't know, it becomes like extroverts versus introverts, and it was just like, it's like, why does this have to be like a rivalry type of thing? And and then like some of the things that people would say about extroverts or introverts, they're like, oh, you guys don't know how to make decisions, or you guys are like slow.
You're such a Gemini.
Yeah. They would say things, and we're like, well, we think you're sociopaths because you talk like constantly. And it was just like funny to hear how we perceive each other. And it kind of got annoying to me, which I guess is the introvert trait too, because like, I'm like, why do we have to compete, and why is it, I guess for me, I feel like in the work space specifically, extroverts always win. Right. Like, you have to talk, you have to be a people person, you have to be outgoing. So it's like, even if you're an introvert and you have a lot of positive qualities, none of that matters, because at the end of the day, it's like, you need to talk, you need to be like this, dazzling personality. Sales. It's like, it's money. So that's kind of how the article came about for me, writing about how these assessments basically punish certain types of personalities. And even though, I guess that was the thing at the retreats, they were telling us like, oh, there's no wrong personality. But I'm like, but I feel like that's not true. It's like, introverts are the wrong personality. So it's always a push to be more extroverted, because that was always the feedback that I would get from my boss, would be like, oh, we want you to speak up more in meetings and this and that. It's like, but if I don't, smile, be outgoing. And it's like, okay, but if I don't do that, does that mean I'm a bad employee or that I'm not adding value to my team, which I think I was. So that's kind of where the idea came from, and I interviewed a couple people who were talking about, how this can negatively impact different workspaces, because it's essentially forcing all of us to be the same. Like, it's forcing us to all conform to the status quo. So yeah, that was kind of the idea behind it. And like I said, people were some people agreed with me and they were like, oh yeah, I hate that test, and like I feel like I've never really been understood because I'm an introvert. And then other people said that I was like blaming the test because of my experience at my job, which clearly I wasn't doing, but it's like that was just the assumption that I'm blaming Myers-Briggs because of my job experience. But I was like, okay, whatever. You think I'm blaming it? Cool.
Yeah. And where was the article published?
It was published in the New York Times.
Hey.
Yes.
I think.
See, introverts win.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, like that's a testament to the power of introversion.
Yes.
I think my experience with it was, okay, every time I take this test, it's a different result.
Yeah, that's what people were saying too. Like, I can change my answer. Like, I can literally say whatever I want. Yeah. And it'll be, oh, okay, you're an extrovert today.
And I'm like not bullshitting. It's like I take the test with a few years in between because like it pops up in like some sort of like job situation, or my friend mentions it, or someone mentions it. Yeah. So I distinctly remember I've taken the test at least 3 times. And I had like a campaigner personality. I had a mediator personality. Like it just keeps changing, you know. So I don't think it's a good way to assess anything. Like that was my experience, and like also hearing other people's opinions about like that's just like corporate America just trying to like put you in a box. So so I've heard those comments too. Right. But to my surprise, so many Asian people that I meet over here, like the Chinese and Japanese and Korean, like it's one of the first questions that they ask you.
Interesting.
Which is really weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, first of all, how do you know about this test? I thought it was just like a West thing. Second of all, like, why is it so important? And then I like go on like tangent about like what we're just like talking about here. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I don't want the whole conversation to be about this, but I think for me and like for a lot of other people, it's like our personality at work versus our personality just like being in life is like different because like when I'm at work, I'm here to work. Right. So it's like I'm very focused. I'm very like, I'm going to get this done, going to get that done. And like, I don't really talk to my coworkers because I'm like, I don't need to talk to you. Like, it's like I talk to people that I need to talk to. So from that point of view, it seems like, oh, she's very introverted. But outside of work, like, I talk to people, like now. It's like if I didn't want to talk to people and you had reached out, I'd be, oh no, I wouldn't have even responded because like I don't like people. You know, that's the assumption. I don't like people. But if I don't like people, why would I be talking to this person who I don't know? You know, it's like, so I think it's interesting that like it's assumed that who you are at work is like who you are everywhere, when clearly like we're all performing. Exactly. Like work is about performance. Act. So yeah. By the way,
I met Quinisha on WhatsApp through a digital nomad group, and this is the first time I ever see her. And this is I want to say this. I think people are nice, but you just have to be first. Yeah. Like in life. If there's anyone who's like listening and they're like, oh shit, I'm so alone. No, they're not. There's so many people around you that you could just be like, hey, like, do you want to meet up for coffee? Like, but I get that. I do understand that part where it's like, oh, like the dating aspect comes in and that comes in and this comes in. But I guess your intentions are, they speak louder than their words, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of, it's funny you brought that up too, because like, I guess that is sometimes people's thought. If somebody reaches out and says like, oh hey, you want to meet for coffee, it's like, oh, are they like hitting on me or what? So it's just like, okay. And if they are, it's just like, is that the worst thing in the world either? Like it's like, exactly. It's like, so I don't really think there's a bad side to it. Absolutely, it's like, okay, you meet this person and you really don't know. Like, you know, that's I guess the risk. It's like you really don't know what people's intentions are. But it's like, meet up with them, talk. Worst case, they were interested in you, you're not interested, and then like you go on with your lives, you know? So it's like the fact that people are afraid to like connect because like, oh, what if they're trying to like What if they're trying to
like,
watch?
but how
Yeah.
do you, like, when you talk about dating and like people like how I met my partner, like because you met and talked, like, so yeah, it's just interesting that people are like, we can't talk.
Oh, and another article, the rejection one.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a good one to talk about now.
Yeah, so the second article, which was also published in the New York Times, it's about the
We're
fear
on
of
a roll right
rejection.
now.
Yes. It's about the fear of rejection and how it can cost you money. So that idea came about, what was it? I think it was the end of the year. It was around Christmas time. And I mean, as a freelance, I was freelancing. So when you're like sending pitches and emails, like
Most of them
you don't
just were
get,
like,
it's like you don't
no
get
answers.
responses.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I was
yeah.
getting kind of like frustrated, you know, because I wasn't hearing back from different outlets. So I was just kind of thinking about rejection and how it can get to you and kind of get to the point where you don't want to try, or you feel like, okay,
I'm worthless.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
like, am I the worst writer ever? It's like, even though you've gotten assignments before, it's like you just start having those thoughts come up. So, so I was basically writing about how the fear of rejection can hold you back from like putting yourself out there, and also just like making a pivot, you know, because I think for me at least, sometimes I'll have ideas and I'm like, oh, this is like the best idea in the world, but then I don't want to like share it because I'm like, well, I don't know.
Oh, that's what's costing you money, right?
Yeah, but then even if I share that idea or if I put it out, like for example, I write newsletters sometimes, and like you can have subscriptions set up for people like pay for a newsletter or whatever. So I'll put out the newsletter, or that's my idea for the newsletter. And it might not even be the best idea, but I'm like, if I don't do it, then I'm just like sitting on this idea and I'm thinking like, oh, I'm on this idea and like it could make me so much money. But then if I actually write the newsletter and nobody pays for it, it's just like, no, you weren't going to make money from that anyway. But you were just like sitting on it thinking that you could make money, which is costing you because it didn't make money. So now you're just sitting here thinking about something that's not going to make money at all, as opposed to like learning from the experience.
Yes.
And then actually making money from like doing something better, you know? So
because either way you need to like go forwards with
because you don't know, like you don't know how people are going to respond. You don't know if it's going to be something they actually think has like monetary value. So because what I think has monetary value and what other people think is two different things. So so that was kind of the idea too, is that what you might think makes money wouldn't actually make money, but you're afraid to even like put it out.
Yes.
So
or what like you think that wouldn't make money would actually
make money. Yeah. That too.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you said pivot, I was thinking about like I just wanted to ask you this question: when in life do you feel like you should pivot, or like in what times did you feel like the right thing to do was to pivot, like change the direction, and which times did you think the right thing to do was to just push forward in what you do?
That's a good question. I think about that a lot. I don't know. I mean, it might seem a little counterintuitive, but sometimes I think the time to pivot, or at least kind of, I don't even know if it would be a pivot, but I think of it more as like expanding. So I think sometimes to expand, or when you want to expand, is when things are actually going well. Like I think a lot of times we want to pivot when things aren't working, or when it feels like, oh, you're failing and everything's terrible, and then, well, okay, well, I need to go do this. But for me, at least in my experience, I feel like when things are going well, it's like, okay, maybe this does mean you need to like try something else, because like you're kind of on a winning streak. So it's like, well, if I try something else, then like it might actually work out even better than what I'm already doing. But it's just a matter of like getting out of my comfort zone, stretching myself, and again, like meeting new people, trying new opportunities, maybe experimenting, not too much, but you know, you can always add, you can always tweak like your processes and things like that. So Yeah, I think for me, making a pivot or a change or, again, just trying something different, it's like when things are going well.
Did you do that when you moved out of California? Everything was going well, and then you were like, oh, I'm going to move out of California?
Let's see. When I was in California, I don't know. I mean, at the time, I didn't feel like things were going well, but maybe they were. I guess that's the thing, too, is like if you actually have the opportunity to pivot, then maybe that means things are going well. Because if you couldn't, then that would mean like you didn't, because you have options, right? Making a pivot means you have options. Right. So if you're not able to pivot, then that means you don't have options. No. So I guess things were going well because I had the option to like move and try something other than what I was doing, as opposed to like I'm here and like I literally have no out. So yeah, I think if you have an out, then things are probably going well. Nice. Yeah.
Beautiful. So just to check if I understood correctly from the journey that you started in from California, you did a little tour in the States, which ended up in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then outside, was it Canada, the first place that you went out?
New Orleans,
and then to Asia, or did you do South America first? No, you didn't.
I did Europe.
Oh, you did Europe first, right?
I was in Canada, then went to Europe, and then I came here to Thailand.
Nice.
Yeah.
So give me a few memorable moments from all of these trips.
Oh, wow. There's so many. Let's see. Well, Canada, I guess we'll start there.
Yeah, okay, let's start.
What was memorable was that I actually showed up there in the winter, which I don't know if you've been to Canada. I was in Montreal.
I know it's cold,
yeah, but it was lots of snow as soon as I got there. And I was like, okay, this was literally the worst time to come to Canada.
Whereabouts were you?
I was in Montreal.
Montreal,
yeah,
nice.
So I was in Montreal, Canada, showed up in December, and so much snow. It was like minus something, minus maybe like 10 degrees.
Oh my God.
I had like no winter.
It's the same Celsius Fahrenheit at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's like I had no winter gear, so I'm just there with like this.
No down jacket, no nothing.
I had like this coat and like a little scarf, but it was like that's nothing. So so I'm there, and immediately I'm like, okay, this was the worst idea ever. When you talk about a pivot, I'm like, okay, I made a pivot, and like this was the worst idea ever. So it was like. It was a little scary at first, but I ended up, again, working through it and kind of ended up getting my feet, kind of got settled. And after the winter was over, which was like months, because in Montreal it snows from like, I think November until maybe like March. So they have like really long winters. But after the winter was over, it was beautiful. Like Montreal has like lots of nature, so I was able to like be outside, and there's like this canal, and I would always like walk along the canal, so that was a really nice experience. And then Europe, let's see, trying to think what was the most memorable in Europe. Can I say this? Oh
yeah, go ahead.
I hated Italy.
Oh, that's so.
That was the first. I didn't hate it. I won't say I hated it. I hated the behavior, or like
the pushiness and all that.
Yeah, not even that, but yeah, it was like they were angry, like people were really hostile, and like, again, when you talk about the image of Italy, it's like, romantic, and like I'm thinking, I'm gonna fall in love and find like this Italian, and then it's like, oh wait, like what's going on here? And it wasn't that at all. So Italy was very like
I have a very romantic like image of Italy in my mind too. So thank you for breaking the reality. Yeah,
Italy was a little like okay. Weird. I went to Croatia. I love Croatia. That's actually one of my favorite places. Yeah, I went to Zagreb.
Nice.
I've been to Split before. I didn't tell you this. I was in the military too. So
nice.
So I went to Split, Croatia when I was in the military. But then this time I went to Zagreb. And Zagreb was really nice. I actually ended up meeting up. I had some friends that I knew from online. So there was one friend who lived in Brussels. So I went to Brussels and we met up. And I went to the UK and met up with a friend in London.
Nice.
So it was nice to actually like meet some people while I was
you know
traveling.
already,
Yeah. Where else? I went to Berlin. I was pleasantly surprised by Berlin. If I could like live somewhere without like all the visa stuff, I think Berlin would be like up there because it was really
everyone's
nice.
top choice.
Yeah,
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Let's see. And then here in Asia, everything's memorable.
Yeah, I know, right?
I guess the most memorable, or recently, I went to Japan in April.
Oh, you got to tell me about this. In April, especially with the cherry
my
blossom.
birthday.
Was it?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old are you now?
How old am I?
Uh-huh.
I can't tell you that.
Okay, all right.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm 37.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I would definitely. I was gonna say like late. No, okay, maybe not late 20s, but early 30s for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the secret? Introversion.
Yes, introversion.
Less people you deal with.
Yeah,
less
quit your
bullshit.
job.
Yeah.
Yes. So Japan was amazing. I went to Osaka, Japan. And there's
Did you stay in Osaka the whole time?
I did. Well, I was on there for 2 days.
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
yeah, there's I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's like a castle. It's like I don't know if the name is. I think it is the Osaka Castle and Garden. So there's like this beautiful garden, and I was there for like. I just stayed there like the whole day pretty much because I was like okay, I want to see that, so I have to go. So I booked a hotel that was like literally just down the street and walked out there, and it was like a little cloudy in the morning. So as I was like walking out, I had a long like trip there, and like I was taking the train, and I had never taken the train, so that was something that was like kind of scary because. Again, first time in Japan, and everything's in Japanese, and I don't know any Japanese, so I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I got there late at night, and my phone died, so it's like your nightmare experience, and like I'm thinking about clowns, but but then like I was like, I was really proud of myself because like I wrote down like all the stops that I needed to take to get to my hotel, and like I'm sitting on the train and like I'm looking at each stop and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the right stop. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's the right stop. And then I ended up actually getting to my hotel just by like writing down all the stops instead of using my phone. So I was like, yes.
There you go.
I'm like, I did not have to depend on technology to get to this hotel. So
that's impressive,
nice.
Actually.
Thank you.
And would you say in Japan, like all the stop names and everything is intuitive-ish?
What do you mean?
Like, is it really hard to navigate?
That's what surprised me. It wasn't as hard as I thought because that's what I think the reputation is in Japan. It's like, oh, it's so hard to like figure it out, but like they actually do make it really easy to like navigate and find things. I mean, they had like I don't know if they're security, but they have people who work like at the metro stations and stuff like that, so you can ask them like, hey, can you help me, like, because my ticket wasn't working or something. So I asked them like, hey, can you help me? And they helped. So it was, it wasn't as hard as I thought.
I would assume India would be a little bit more difficult than that.
That's what I've heard. So Japan it wasn't as bad. It wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. I've always been very intimidated to like travel to Japan, but my first experience was really nice. So
So besides Chiang Mai, all of these places that you've been to, which ones would you go back again?
Besides Chiang Mai, I'd say Berlin.
Yeah.
Zagreb. Where else? Montreal. I really enjoyed that.
Nice.
Where else? I'm trying to think where else in Europe. I went to Portugal, which was like, it's okay, but I would go back. It was I went there in the winter too, last winter. It was more rainy than I was hoping for. I was hoping for a little better weather. So yeah, if the weather was better, I'd probably go back
Is
to
it a
Porto.
port?
I think it is.
Huh?
It's like I guess
boats.
it is like off of the water, so it was like kind of chilly a little bit, windy. So yeah, it wasn't like the most pleasant weather to like go out and explore in, but it's it had like a artsy type of vibe, which was I've heard about Lisbon. I didn't go to Lisbon, but Lisbon is apparently, you know, like really busy and hustle and bustle, but Porto was like a little more quiet. I felt like it was more I guess if you're talking about introvert, extrovert, I think Porto's introverts. Lisbon is probably more for extroverts. So,
Got you.
Yeah.
And which place did you feel, like as a writer, is it, well, first I should actually ask you this, like does inspiration come from like a certain vibe of a place, or does it, like, is it more of a mental state where like it doesn't really matter where you are, it just happens?
Interesting. That's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe for me, I don't know if it's cliche, but after a while, I think you have to just write or like, you know, regardless of like where
How
you
you
are,
feel,
because I
sure.
think as writers, I think there is this idea that we have to find like the perfect space, and there has to be like total seclusion and find like this perfect cabin, you know, like in the woods, and but you can
You're just,
find
like,
the perfect
distancing
cabin
yourself,
and still sit there and like not write anything. So it's like I've had to get into the routine of like, even if I'm somewhere that seems a little bit more crowded or isn't like the ideal, you know, space, like I still have to write something, even if it's not a masterpiece. You know, it's like you still do it, and then you'll come back to it later and see like, oh, okay, I can do something with this. It wasn't the worst writing. So yeah,
That's valuable, because what I hear from what you say is, don't distance yourself from the practice. Like it has to be this one, and then like all these like requirements before you actually start doing the doing.
yeah, that's what I think. Like even when it comes to like coffee shops, you know, people are always, oh, you have to find like a cute little coffee shop with like everything's the perfect brew, you know. It's just like, okay, sometimes you won't. Like sometimes when I go out, it's like I'll go to a coffee shop and it's like, oh, I don't really like the vibe necessarily, but like I'm here and like I try to make the most of it. So
Okay, let me rephrase my question then. Was there any particular place that made you feel like, oh, like I want to write right now?
Let me see. I don't know. I think maybe Japan made me feel like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Like after I had gone like out to the garden and was like seeing all of it, I did feel like that. You're talking about like the movie spark of inspiration. I was like, I'm so inspired. Yeah, I think that's probably the one place where I felt like that.
Zen gardens.
Creative, inspiration that you're always hoping for. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I hear so many good things about Japan. The people and the way they take care of everywhere. My dad traveled quite a bit in Southeast Asia, and from whenever I asked about, or whenever he's like doing these like, oh, in my travels, let me tell you about my travels, like Japan always comes up, and he can't stop talking about how they would have these umbrellas, and you know, when it rains, like people just pick up the umbrellas and then they leave the umbrellas on the ground, and then the people, like the workers, just like collect them and put them back into the boxes. And my dad was like, what? No one really steals that?
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. It's like it just felt so like, I know people use the word safe, but it wasn't even safe so much. It just felt like you said, you felt taken care of. You just felt like, okay, this is a place where like I don't even have to like, I don't want to say think, but like for me, I'm very much like, okay, I have to like, where do I go? What do I do? Like I have to prepare, but it's like, it just felt like when you get there, everything's like prepared. And it's like, you don't even have to tell them like, hey, I'm on my way. They're like, yeah, we have everything ready. Yeah. So like you're here. And again, it's like I said, taking the train and all that. It's like I'm freaking out because I'm on my phone is dead, you know, but I was like, oh, everything's prepared. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah. Like it just feels like a very structured culture, I guess. So yeah, it was interesting. I've never experienced that, I guess.
I heard about some stories where there's restaurants, like you can choose to just be in a booth of the restaurant and like you say, I don't want to talk to the waiter or anybody. Like you just put in your order and then they just like slide your food in there and like you can just be in and there's like booths in the subways and stuff. If you get too overwhelmed, you can just like be in the booth, like cry or you know like do like whatever you want. Have you seen those things?
I didn't see that.
Oh, okay.
No, but I could see that.
Yeah, you could see that happening in Japan.
Yeah. It seemed like they are very intuitive. Yeah, which is interesting.
Introvert friendly place.
Yeah, very introvert friendly. Yeah.
Nice. How was growing up in Missouri?
Oh wow. Now you're asking the big questions. How was it? What do you want to know?
Yeah. Well, just tell me about your first memories.
Okay. Let's see. Well, we moved there when I was about 5, maybe 5 or 6. My mom, my stepmom, or my stepdad, sorry, and me and my little brother. So we moved there from Illinois.
Okay.
And then they had my little sister. So my earliest memories, we lived in like an apartment. Stayed there for a while. And then we ended up moving into like the suburbs when I was maybe like 7 or 8. Yeah. And I think what I remember, which was like, I don't know why, but as a kid, like we were the first black family to move into this neighborhood, and I guess it was like.
Do you remember any looks and stuff?
They didn't want. I'm sorry.
Do you remember any like looks and stuff?
Yeah, I think it was like they didn't want us there, which was like kind of odd to like, or again, when you're like 8 years old, you're just like, I don't really know what this means, you know, but like, and I remember my mom, like she was trying to be very friendly, you know, she like introduced herself, and my little brother and sister, like they would like try to say hi to people, and like people like didn't want to talk to them, so it's just like kind of weird to experience that at that age. And then I was in school at first, but I started having like trouble in school with just like behavior. I wasn't like wanting to do like assignments and stuff, like being rebellious. Surprise. So then my mom actually ended up like taking me out of school and homeschooling me. So I ended up so I ended up being homeschooled until I graduated high school. So yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So did you go to high school then afterwards?
No, she homeschooled me. I wanted to go, but she was like, no. So
much better.
Yeah, that's what I realized in hindsight.
You saved yourself a lot of programming.
Bullying, programming, all that stuff. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then, so after college, you prepared for your SATs and all that by yourself?
Well, for the SATs, I studied for that. I actually graduated like a year early, so I ended up studying for the SATs, and I had one college that I wanted to go to, but it was like, it's too expensive, so I ended up going to like a community college for my first 2 years. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And how was that experience like? Regular?
It was good. I think at the time, because I was like 17, so at the time there was kind of like this, I don't know how it is for you, but it's like this social thing of like you have to go to like the big university and like
sure.
stay in like the
course,
dorms and have
world.
like that,
Yeah.
traditional experience. So I was like, at the time, I felt like a community college was not as good as like university, but looking back, I feel like that was actually a good experience to have
sure.
because like you get the same education and you're paying like a fraction of the cost of a traditional university. Plus it also felt more, I feel like I got more one-on-one attention with like my professors and stuff like that, whereas later on when I went to other universities you have like a class of
Huge
100
classes,
or whatever, whereas at the community college it may be like 20 students, so you're actually really getting to like interact with your professor. So it's one of those things where like you don't appreciate it at the time, but then later on you're like, oh yeah, that was the best.
In high school I had a similar experience because it's a status game, really. Like your parents want you to go to these like really like either good, like the best public ones, preferably because you don't have to pay for it.
Right.
But the private ones, I got that quite early on. I had a really good American friend who I consulted about, I finished college, now I want to do a master's. And he was like, dude, do you have like $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for this? And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, then don't bother, because what you're paying for is the circles. Like you get to rub elbows with people that will, like buy your service, buy your product that you make at the end of it.
Right.
Like they're not giving you anything you cannot find online in terms of like theoretical knowledge.
Right.
So you're just buying into these circles.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay. So then this applies to like college. This applies to high school. This applies to education as an industry.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole thing.
That's
like,
what it is. It's an industry. Yeah.
So cool. And how did you end up in the military, by the way?
Let's see. Well, speaking of college, so after I finished the first 2 years at the community college, I ended up going to a private university in Atlanta, and I was there for about a year. But the tuition was like insane. So I was like, I don't want to keep taking out, like my parents weren't helping me pay for everything, pay for school. So it was all like, you want to go here, you pay for it, you figure out how to pay for it. So after a year I was like, okay, I don't want to pay for this. So I dropped out and was working for a little bit and got fired from that. It was like one of those times where just like all this stuff was happening. So it was like I got fired from this job, so then I had to go back home, and I was working at like a call center, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like I didn't want to be back in Missouri. So at the time, like I was talking to like this recruiter, and he was telling me like, oh yeah, like we'll pay for college, we'll do this, we'll do that, like you can travel. And I was like, I guess. So so I went through the whole process and ended up passing like the physical, background check, all that stuff, and had the date to go to boot camp. And I was still like, I'm not really going. Like I was like, no, I'm not going to boot camp. I'm gonna find another job, do all this stuff, and like still nothing was happening. So when it came time to go to boot camp, I was like, I guess I'll go, because like there's nothing else going on. So so I did that for 5 years, and then once I was out of the military, that's how I ended up going back to school and got my bachelor's in communications, and didn't have to pay, so that was nice.
Good.
Yeah.
And from going to school versus working at jobs, which experiences, which times that you were doing whatever you needed to do in that context helped you in life the most? Was it more working or is it more school stuff?
I mean, I think it's all of it. Like when I look back over my, I don't know if it's a career or just like my life path, I feel like everything kind of like set me up for the next step in life. Like even though sometimes I feel like my life is like all over the place, and I'm just like, oh, this is random. I'm like, so you went again? I'm like, you went to I'm like, you went to community college, and then like you went to this school, then you dropped out, then you went to the military, then you went back to school, and then you like were doing some work and freelancing. So it's like it feels all over the place initially, but then when I look back, I'm like, oh, I guess this kind of like made sense, because like each thing like helped me, or like I had like a specific goal at the time, and like sometimes what I thought this thing was going to be was like not actually what it ended up being. And instead of, I guess when we talk about like the pivots, it's like instead of just staying on this path, even though I'm like, this isn't leading me where I want to go, I'm like, well, go do this other thing, because this is actually going to lead you to like what you want. Because like going to the private university, like you said, it's like status, it's about like just the fancy name, the fancy title, the piece of paper, but then you're like in thousands of dollars of debt for what, you know? And then these people still don't like you, and they still don't help you. So now you're just like struggling. So
great, they don't like me now, and I'm in debt.
I have
as well.
all this money. I still owe all this money, and these people don't want to help me. So I'm still not making any progress. So
So taking yourself out of the equation, like taking yourself out of the
getting
whole
out of my
system,
own way,
as it were. As a better, I mean that's what we got to do. Like with Daniel, we were talking about the same thing. If it's rigged, like I totally do not subscribe to this, like, oh, if you can't beat him, join him. Like no. Like if you can't beat him, just leave.
Exactly.
It's like you know, like you have, everyone has a ball in the game, you know, and like, you know, when we were kids, like the guy who has the ball and he's like, okay, I'm leaving, you know, and we can't play anymore. Like, just leave. Like, just take your ball and leave. Really, like they can't play without your ball, so like take your ball and go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely.
And from these places, why do you keep coming back to Chiang Mai?
That's a good question. I don't know. Is Chiang Mai magic?
Might be.
I think so. I think every time, like that's the thing. Every time I leave and come back, I feel like there's like something like new or different or it's like I always think like, I shouldn't say always, but sometimes I am like, oh, I'm done with Chiang Mai, because people say like, oh, it's boring, or like there's nothing exactly here, and then I come here and come back and I'm like, wait a minute, like I don't remember that, like like I was just looking in the group, the digital nomad group, and like people are like, oh, go check out this cafe, and I was like, I've never seen that cafe, and I'm thinking like I've been to like all the coffee shops and all the cafes in Chiang Mai, but it's like, no, there's like always something new popping up, and again, then you like meet new people and you're like, well, they're super cool, so like why wouldn't I want to come back?
No, I think that precise thing you said about how it's boring. Like, I want people to say that it's boring. Like, I want people to say that it's like, you know, I don't want that. Like, we can't inflate this place. We don't. And another part is like, I don't think it'll be inflated like what's happening in Bali right now. Like there's just like a lot of people coming in, you know. Because we have the burning season, but it's rainy. It's not glamorous. We don't have a lot of we don't have any beaches around, so it's just like pools every other corner. So there's enough reasons for people to be like, I want to go to Phuket. Like, okay, you go down to Phuket.
I think that's when I like Chiang Mai the least, is when it's like everybody's here and I'm just like, can you guys leave please, like so we can get back to like this, because this is like the Chiang Mai that I like, when it's like you can meet people and not like, oh hey, I'm going to Bali, I'm going to Vietnam and doing like the whole like pancake trail. I'm just, okay, like that's what do they call it? The banana something? I don't know.
After the Silk Road, the spice road, and now we got the pancake trail. I love it.
I'm like, if I hear about people going to see elephants one more time, like okay, sorry. I'm judging.
I totally feel you. I think I thought I was alone, by the way.
No.
Like, it's like am I the only person who just wants to leave the elephants be? You know?
Right. I'm like, they don't want us.
Yeah, like, I was listening to, do you know Alan Watts?
What's that?
Alan Watts?
I think I've heard,
Yeah, he's the philosopher guy who, like, did a lot of studies in Asian philosophy and culture. And he's trying to impart it back into the Western world. Super cool guy.
Yeah.
Mainly, the reason is his voice is just like, oh, so good. You know, it just puts me to sleep. But he was talking about his friend who was doing research on a dolphin, and for like an extended amount of time, he was like trying to decipher their language, and he got to a point where he was like, okay, well, this being is way more intelligent than me. Like I can't understand its language. Like it's trying to like get me to get it, but I don't get it. So like I'm just gonna let him just go because apparently I'm too inferior to this being. So it's an apostrophe that, what was that? How do I say that word?
What's that? Apostrophe?
It's bad that I'm keeping this person.
Oh, I don't know what the word is for that.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Like I should let it go.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel like with most animals. Like we don't really get them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because we have a different way we're wired different.
Yeah.
It's like how the Indians, like the Native Americans, describe like first settlers, the colonizers. They're like, oh, like these guys are always searching for something. Like we don't know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But we think they're crazy. Like they're always looking for something. There's not a moment their eyes are just like this, you know, and they're like, what do you mean? Like there's nothing to look for. Like this is it, you know, like, this, like nature and like birds and stuff, you know, like, that's it.
Yeah. That's another thing. Like I hope I don't get on a tangent with this, but like when people talk about like coming to like countries like this and like being on like this spiritual journey or like healing journeys, like, and it's always like, oh, well, if you want to connect with nature, then like go like touch this tree, and like that bothers me because I'm like, the tree doesn't want to be touched, like, and it's like I think people look at it as like, oh, I have to like, okay, again, this is like the woo-woo stuff, but it's like, I'm gonna like go give my energy to this tree, or like whatever pain I'm feeling, like I'm gonna go touch this tree, and like the tree is gonna absorb my pain, and I'm just like, but did you ask the tree if it wants to absorb your pain? Like trees don't want all of our stuff, right? It's like, so I thought about that too, because like when I was back home on the road trip, I would like walk. And some people say, like, oh, take your shoes off and walk in the grass. And, like, I did it. But at the same time, it's like, this feels a little weird. Because I'm like, does the grass want me to, like, give it my pain? Like, I don't know. It's just, like, these thoughts that I was having of, like, when we're on this spiritual journey and healing, it's like, yes, it's good for us to heal. It's good for us to, like, try to connect to nature. But I don't think it should always be from a place of, like, giving our pain to like something else, because like it's ours.
I look at it a little bit more scientific though.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Were you done, or I cut you off?
I was just gonna say when it comes to like nature, it's like I don't think nature's purpose is to like always absorb our pain, and I think that's kind of how we tend to look at nature, like oh, if you're hurting, go out to heal. It's like, but nature is not, I guess it's, again, when it comes to like taking, like we don't always have to take or go out, you know, with the intent to like, oh, take something. Like sometimes just be in nature, because like that's what we all want. We want to just be, and I think that's how nature is too. So
I think I agree on the like the perspective and like the way you look at it. You can
challenge me, so go ahead.
No,
I'm always up for these.
Because it's a very different way of looking at it. Like, did you get consent from nature?
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
You know?
I mean, I guess that's what it is. Yeah. Like, because like I can't just come up to you and be like, hey, can I just touch you because I'm in pain? Like, no, it's. I don't know.
But the way I see it is like more like when you're barefoot in grass, what happens is like an exchange, right? So your like positrons. Like now there's like a billion electronic devices over here.
Yeah.
There's the Wi-Fi, and there's like all these other people using like where the camera pointed towards us, the lights, the AC. Like we're loaded. Like we're loaded.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea. Like because I do it weekly. I go to the nearest park. There's like 2 parks that I go, and I set up my slack line, and then I just like walk on the rope. And I mean, I do it barefoot, so every time I step off the line, I'm on the grass. And so the weekends, I feel different, like a very tangible difference. Like it's a palpable feeling in my body that I feel a little bit more like less headache, less sluggish, you know. So I think there's an exchange that happens, and you can look at it as like like I'm giving off the pain, which is true. Like if you carry all this like electrons and like all this, you know, EMF and all that stuff, it is pain for the human body because we're an organic, you know, like being. And I think grass and nature in general is just so vast and huge. They take that and they turn it into some other thing, you know. So it's the way I justify it in my mind, being barefoot is that way. But I do understand your perspective of like, well, you know, touching the tree and grass is just like a minor example, but like, let's keep these animals confined in this fucking space so we can look at them. Like last time I went to a zoo in Pattaya, it was tragic. It was heartbreaking. Like, oh, let's go look at these sedated tigers who are like toothless and like just not living the way they should be living, and they're just like doing the same like they're crazy, you know, like they're drugged so intensely that these are predators, you know, like they could maul you and tear you into freaking shreds. And you're just looking at them and they're just like there, you know, like they're so against their nature, you know. It was tragic, like all these big seals like stuck in aquariums. Like this one was just like like literally so just like stuck in a glitch, you know, just doing this. And I was like what does the world come to? Like why are we doing this? Like it literally made me sick. Like I wanted to throw up.
I mean, I think that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make. I don't know if I'm getting it across well, but like I was thinking, like today I was in my apartment and like you can see everything, you know, the buildings and stuff like that. And I guess for me it's like I was thinking about burning season because you talked, you know, about that, and I was just so amazed because I was just like, wow, the fact that like we literally could all die, like, because that's such a strong, like, intense time, you know. And I think we're like very casual and kind of like, oh yeah, burning season, and then like on to the next thing. And like now the fact that the skies have cleared up and like we can breathe a little bit better, I'm just like, this is something to like really pause and like look at. And I think we're so quick to just kind of like go into like, okay, like now what do we do? Like I've seen, I mean, it's okay to have meetups and stuff like that, but it's just kind of like, okay, now we're gonna like do a dinner and do this and do that. And I'm just like, can we pause to like appreciate that like we're alive right now? Like after how intense that is, because that was like my last month, you know, that was my first time being here, like during that time, and like I was fucking terrified because I'm like, why is the sky orange? Like this is like, it's a lot. So yeah, I think, at least for me, I don't know about anybody else, but I think sometimes I do underestimate like the power of nature and like everything around us, and like the fact that it doesn't kill you, like you were talking about the tigers and that, the fact that they don't just maul us, it's like, oh, that's amazing. Like luck, when we talk about being lucky, like we're lucky. So
extremely. And
I don't know if that was like off topic.
No, it wasn't. I think gratitude for how far we've come in terms of, you know, okay, like we're mastering the environment, but also being aware that, you know, like we're not the masters of the environment.
The environment is giving us so much grace.
Yes. Being grateful for that is like, like if people like you were like, oh, okay, let's move on to the next thing, like doing this, that. I think that is a major blocker for a lot of people's lives. Like abundance. Like a lot of people don't experience this abundance because they're not grateful.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part of like feeling there's a lot is to just be very thankful with what you have.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, you know,
Yeah.
like I cherish this conversation so much. Like,
same.
and it's like, I have so much right now. Like I don't need anything else today. Like this made my day. It's like an amazing way to start my day.
Right.
And that perspective just gives me so much more and to appreciate and to be like, yeah, like now, like I was telling this on when I do weekday, I just do rants. So I try to upload like a rant a week.
Yeah.
And one day I was talking about how we don't really listen to each other at all because now we have this conversation, but I'm gonna listen to this exact like hour, however long we're gonna make it for. We're at hour 8 minutes, by the way.
Okay.
But I listened to it at least 3 more times. One for the sound editing, one for the subtitles, and one for the like. And I still, you know, like catch things that I didn't in the moment. You know?
Yeah.
And like, if we don't listen to each other in the moment, like if I can find things like after the fact that I spoke to, like over and over again, I listened to it and I was like, wow, she said that? Holy shit, I totally missed it, you know?
Yeah.
And imagine the stuff that they were missing, you know?
All the time. Yeah. Very true. That's why I like to sit and pause. I know people talk about like the awkward silence, but it's not, to me, it's not awkward. I'm just like, I really am sitting here like trying to absorb what people say. Because I think we say a lot and we don't realize it. And we don't realize how powerful our words are. Like, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's like, yeah, our words are like really powerful. So even if you're saying the most simple thing, like, that can stick, or it does. Like, it sticks with us forever. It's like, even if you don't remember this conversation, like years from now, you know, when you're like, senile, you know, it's like this conversation is still going to be like in your memory. So it's really powerful.
It can teach hate. It can degrade, you know. It can elevate too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like you said, we wield a lot of power.
Yeah, we do.
And I think like the pauses are necessary because there's a, like, if you just like think about it in very like surface, there's like the light that's coming in from these lights, there's the light coming from outside, there's like the hum and the buzz, so there's input already. And we're like building on that input by like talking. And it's like, whoa, I need to like process this.
That's why when I think of like back to the work, you know, conversation, that's why to me it's like the fact that it's like talk more and like do this and do that. I'm like, but we're already doing so much already that we're like, we don't even realize, because work, again, it's like, it's so task based and it's so like, okay, this list, you know, of these things, but it's like there's so much outside of that we're doing. Like if you're working even with a team of like 5 people, like that's so much. So we think like, oh, that's a small team. Like working with 5 other people is like intense. It's like working with one person is intense. So to be able to work with a team and like actually collaborate and like get projects done or not get them done, you know, it's like even the mistakes that we make, it's like that's huge. So the fact that we're able to like accomplish so much is like, I don't know, I think it's amazing. And the fact that like so many people still don't feel like they're doing enough or they're contributing enough based on like these arbitrary metrics is like, it's kind of sad. And I wish more people had the time or had the opportunity to like step outside of these environments and see like, yeah, you're really fucking amazing. Like outside of your resume, like you're amazing.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why marriage is so hard too.
Yeah. Exactly. Like when I think about my marriage, I'm like, that was fucking amazing. Like we were two human beings coexisting in like this society and like navigating all this different stuff and still able to communicate somehow, like even if we didn't understand each other all the time, like just being able to get these things done, like it was really cool. And like I think at the time, of course, you're always thinking, what am I doing wrong? You know, we're always thinking about what we're not doing, but again, in hindsight, you're just like, I was doing a lot right, you know, but we focus so much on what we didn't do or how we're failing. So
we're wired to feel that way, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. Because if you're not always thinking about how you're failing, you wouldn't keep trying to do things.
Right.
So that wouldn't keep these systems alive.
Right, that would crumble.
Yeah. If we were like, oh, I'm doing a good job, I can stop. Like, or I can just sit here and think about the good that I'm doing. Like, that doesn't help move any of this forward.
Right,
so, yeah.
So the point is to just move forward, right?
I think, I think we're supposed to move forward, but then not even really know why. You know, it's like we're always like pushing, but it's like I said earlier, what am I pushing for? And that's the point that a lot of people don't really get to. Like we're just pushing and pushing and pushing, and we don't even know what we're doing or why. So. And
in the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, is it just survival? Like, is that why we're trying to colonize Mars? Like, is it like, like what is it? Is it like, is it just basically hinging on, you know, like sex, which is like survival in a sense, you know, like to reproduce and make sure the species continue, feed the species. Is that it? Like or I don't know. There's figures over here who is just like noped out of the game. They were like, yeah, you know, like I'm above it. And there's a way out of it, and they're like, but then again, I feel like the way these thinking systems are structured, like they might have good intentions, like all the Abrahamic religions or you know, like the Eastern philosophies, but the way they're pushed into the society, I feel like is a little bit more like, I don't know, they're utilizing it, like the thinking systems, so that you're content with the gap, the divide that we have. That's undeniable divide of like the upper class and the lower class and the non-existent middle class these times. I feel like they're utilized, they're leveraged so that people can be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the way it is. Next time I come, I'm a king, or like something like that, or like, you know, and like in these Abrahamic religions, you die and then like there's heaven, you know. Don't worry, like you're good, be a good boy and you go to heaven, you know. But I don't know. I might be crazy. I'm probably crazy.
We all are.
Were you raised religious?
Yeah. My family was Christian, so we grew up in church. I guess that was another you asked about, like what I remember. So yeah, that was, of course, being taught a certain way. I don't know. I don't even want to say that it was bad or that it was wrong. I think a lot of it did shape me and how I am, and I think I still, like, I don't practice Christianity, like, in the sense of going to church, but I think I still do have those beliefs or values, but it's not so much of, like, again, it's not structured. It's not like a formal, like, okay, I have to be in this setting and I have to read this book, you know, all the time, which was what we did. Like, we have to read the Bible all the time, but...
They never let people read the book of Enoch.
I don't even remember that book.
Really?
Yeah, we only memorized, like, certain scriptures, which was, like, weird.
There's some really deep stuff in the Bible.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I think about. It's like there's so much in there, but the fact that it's always just like the 10 Commandments. It's like, okay, there's more
gotta
than that.
be more.
Yeah. Right. It's like, so I feel like we don't even get to like the meat of it, you know. Because if we did, how would we, you know, how would we be good little robots?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I think it's the more I just talk to people, the more I live outside of these paradigms, existing paradigms of like, oh, like this is great, like this is the best. Like I feel like for like America in particular, it's like, you know, like your parent says like, oh, like you're so, like you're the best kid, you know. But they just lied. Like it's a parent that kind of lied to you. That said like, you're the best kid, you're the best kid, you're the best kid, and then you go to school and then you realize you're like one of the worst kids. It's like, oh my God, like I thought, but my parents told me I'm the best kid. It's like, no, you're not the best kid. That's how I feel like.
Reality.
Yeah, like because going there at such an early age and then like observing it from afar and seeing how like things pan out, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, my parents went for the same reason. Like America was the first brand of a country, you know. Like, when like they brandified countries, like Nike-fied or Coca-Cola-fied, you know. Yeah. Like it's all private. And then like I remember as a kid, like like adults talking to each other. It's like, oh, America, this thing. It was kind of this like thing that it's an ideal. It's like this Neverland, you know, land of opportunities, and it's like this. It's like this mega construct, you know, that you buy into. Yeah. But then like the grass is absolutely not greener on the other side. But, let's get to it.
I mean, the thing about, for me, when I think about living in America versus like traveling to other countries, it's like, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, we're so brainwashed. Like it's, and again, it's just so extreme. It's like things that are not that big of a deal. It's like we're programmed to think like, oh, this is like the best thing that you'll ever have, and like you'll never get anything. You can't ever get anything better than this. It's like we gave you this slice of bread, and like you'll never be able to get a better slice of bread anywhere. And it's just like, but clearly that's not true. But like there are people who like really believe like you will never get a better slice of bread anywhere other than here.
It's grandma's bread.
Yeah, right. And it's like, why? Like, why would you even want people to think that way? Like, there's amazing bread everywhere. So why can't we try amazing bread everywhere? Like, it's very. I mean, it's a prison basically. It's like keeps you imprisoned. Yeah,
it's like the grandma's house where like. I love that analogy because it's like they feed you, like you go to grandma's house, it's like old, but like she feeds you a lot, you know, like more than you need to, you know, like all the portion sizes are huge in the States, you know. And you know, Europe is this similar place where it's like not even grandma's house anymore, it's the museum. And it's like, look at all this old shit, and I love what you said about it's old and it's amazing palace, but you can't come. Please look at it from afar. Please do not touch. And if you come over here, I mean, just look at this cafe. It's like it's freaking new, you know. And there's so many places like Indonesia, not just Bali. There's so many islands over there that are like really, really new and just fresh and full of ripe for opportunities, basically.
Right.
You can go open like, I don't know, you like smoothies, just open a smoothie shop somewhere, you know? Like you don't need much to like open up shop anywhere. Right. And as long as you don't, you know, like ruffle the feathers with some, mafia, because there are some places around Southeast Asia there's mafia around. As long as you're like not stepping on anyone's toes, and not as long as you're not price cutting anyone, everyone's just mainly chill,
Yeah.
Like, they just let you be.
Yeah. Where are we at now? Hour and a half.
122. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
122.
Okay. Nice.
Any parting ideas?
What's that? Parting ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation, so I appreciate you inviting me and like talking. Like, I always love talking about weird stuff, so thank you for indulging my weirdness.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
The pleasure was all mine.
Yes. Thank you.
And would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Oh, I didn't introduce myself. Yeah. My name is Quinisha Jackson Wright. I am a journalist. As I mentioned earlier, been published in the New York Times, Wired, and some other publications that I'm forgetting right now. And I also wrote a book.
What?
Yeah, it's called Working Twice as Hard. Can I plug it right now?
Yes, please. Okay. Yes.
Capitalism.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So this is a book.
Working Twice as Hard.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay. Reality of Entrepreneurship for Black Women.
Yes.
Jackson Wright.
Yes.
Be your own boss. I love it already. Yes. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. That's probably I've been consuming a lot of, the improved self-development, that type of content for like maybe over 15 years.
Yes.
And that do what you love is the thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Block your calendar, like live from like a block calendar life.
Yeah.
I mean, not to every single hour is like a block, but like that, and do what you love.
Yeah.
Are probably the two. And your five people around you are like the average. Who you are. Those are the three things that I think I can save a lot of people some time and effort. Or you can read Working Twice as Hard and save yourself a lot of time and effort. Yeah, this is amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, we can find Quinisha on KW.
Oh no, sorry, that's old.
That's old one.
Don't plug that.
Oh.
I'll give you my stuff later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for watching.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. This is another episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.